In a quiet suburb on a chilly autumn afternoon, Jack stood in front of a small, worn-out house with peeling paint. It was a simple place, but it was home to Sarah, a woman he had never met but had heard a lot about. She had recently moved in, a fresh start after a rough patch. The neighbors whispered stories about her, but Jack didn't pay much attention. He was just here for the job. Jack was an electrician, a modest tradesman with rough hands but a kind heart. He had always loved fixing things, finding joy in restoring what was broken. Today, though, he felt a tension in the air as he walked toward the door. He could sense that this job was different. He knocked and waited. After a moment, the door creaked open. Sarah stood there, her hair slightly disheveled, eyes tired. She smiled a bit too brightly, as if to hide something deeper within. "Hi, you must be Jack," she said, her voice warm but laced with something unspoken. "Yep, that's me," Jack replied, trying to match her energy. She motioned him inside, and he stepped over the threshold, taking in the scattered boxes and half-packed belongings. A flickering light in the living room caught his eye, illuminating the dust dancing in the sunlight. It lit up a space that felt heavy, somehow suffocated by the weight of the past. As he moved towards the light, the small talk between them grew. Sarah talked about her dog, Max, who needed a lot of attention. As she spoke, Jack noticed a shadow cross her face, a fleeting hint of regret perhaps, or loss. But then it was gone, replaced by her warm smile. Jack set to work. He pulled out his tools, focusing on the job at hand, but her presence kept drawing him back. It's just a light, he thought. Yet as he tightened screws and checked wires, he felt a connection spark. Each click and clack of his tools echoed in the quiet house, reminding him of the importance of getting things right. As he worked, he couldn't help but steal glances at her, listening to her soft voice as she shared little stories about her life, how she ended up in this house. "I wanted a change," she said, shrugging lightly. There was a vulnerability in her words that made Jack lean in closer, wanting to understand more. Then, with a final twist of his screwdriver, the light flickered back to life, bright and steady. Jack stood back, wiping his hands on his jeans, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He announced, grinning. Sarah clapped her hands together in delight. Her eyes sparkled with genuine relief. She stepped closer, her expression shifting slightly. In that moment, Jack felt something shift between them. The energy in the room pulsed, electric in a different way. But before he could dwell on the thought, she reached for her purse and his heart raced. Was she about to tip him? It wasn't uncommon, but he didn't expect it from her. Instead, she pulled out a business card. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "I know this might be a little forward, but I'd love to keep in touch if you ever need a..." Jack stared at the card in her hand for a moment. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt monumental. He echoed softly, a smile creeping onto his face. "Yeah, I mean, you helped me out." Sarah's confidence seemed to waver for an instant, but then she straightened. It was as if she too realized the gravity of what they were both feeling. Taking the card, Jack's fingers brushed against hers. The warmth of that touch sent an unexpected shock through him, a thrill he hadn't felt in a long time. They shared a moment of silence, the kind that spoke volumes. It was the unspoken understanding of two souls navigating their way through life, each carrying their own burdens. Jack thought about the days after his own divorce, how loneliness had felt overwhelming at times. Was that what Sarah was facing now? But just as quickly as that thought came, Sarah broke the moment. "Well, I should let you get back to your day," she said, her smile returning, though it seemed to dim a little as if she didn't want to acknowledge the deeper connection. "Right," Jack said, feeling a mix of disappointment and hope. "Thank you for the..." He pocketed it, a little lightness in his chest. As he stepped out onto the porch, he turned to take one last look at her. Sarah stood near the doorway, a silent figure silhouetted against the light of the house. Jack's heart raced inexplicably. There was something powerful in that fleeting moment, a promise of something more. Later that evening, Jack sat at his kitchen table, the card nestled among his tools. It was a simple white card with her name printed neatly, along with her job title and information. He found himself grinning, imagining what it might be like to reach out. He thought about the possibility of getting to know her, about sharing stories over coffee. But then doubt crept in. What would he say? What if she only wanted to be polite? Instantly, he chastised himself for overthinking it. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed a pencil and wrote a note on a piece of paper. Just a small hello, nothing too heavy. There was an urge in him to reach out, to take that leap. The next day, Jack gathered courage and decided to text her. "Hey, it's Jack, the electrician." His finger hovered over the send button, and after a moment's hesitation, he hit it. The familiar rush of fear and excitement bubbled inside him. He had taken a step, however small. To his surprise, it didn't take long for her to respond, her message lighting up his phone. "Hi Jack, thanks for reaching out." Just those few words felt like a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. Over the next few days, their texts flowed back and forth like an easy river. They shared jokes, funny stories, and random thoughts about life. With each message, Jack felt the tension he had sensed on that first day melt away. Sarah's words were like a balm, easing the rough edges of his routine. One night, as Jack leaned against his kitchen counter, phone in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other, he found himself smiling at her replies. He typed, heart racing at the thought. She responded almost instantly. They agreed on a date, and when the day finally came, Jack felt jitters brew in his stomach. He picked out a shirt, one he hadn't worn in ages. He wanted to look just right. The anticipation fluttered through him. Could this be more than just friendship? They met at a cozy coffee shop, the smell of fresh brew and baked goods wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Sarah entered looking radiant, her hair catching the light. She smiled as their eyes met, and suddenly all his nerves faded away. Over coffee, they talked effortlessly, discovering shared interests and dreams that stretched beyond their day-to-day realities. Sarah spoke about her passion for art, how she loved to paint but rarely found time. Jack found himself captivated, drawn into her world. As the hours slipped by, he felt a connection deepen, warm and authentic. They left the shop, walking side by side, laughter filling the spaces in between their conversations, the tension of their earlier encounters dissipating like morning mist. Jack soon found himself opening up, sharing stories of his divorce and the struggles he faced afterward. To his surprise, Sarah listened intently. "You know," she said softly, "it's brave of you to talk about it." Her acknowledgement made something swell inside him. As they talked late into the evening, he caught a glimpse of her true self, a woman passionate about life, yet cautious after her own setbacks. They both carried scars, but something in their shared experiences began to stitch those wounds back together. As the night wore on, they found a quiet park to sit in, the stars twinkling above as if cheering them on. "You know," Jack said, hesitating slightly, "I wasn't sure when I first met you." "Feel the same," Sarah replied, her voice a mix of warmth and vulnerability. The air became thick with the weight of their words, emotions bubbling in an unspoken dance between them. Just then their eyes met, a spark igniting in that moment of shared understanding. Jack felt the urge to lean closer to bridge the gap that lingered. Before he could gather his thoughts, Sarah leaned in a fraction, and their lips barely brushed a soft and tentative kiss, like the flicker of a new light coming back on after dark. It was a moment that tasted like hope. Their connection grew stronger as the weeks passed, each encounter building a foundation that felt unshakable. Jack would often find himself thinking back to that day when he fixed the light in her house, a moment that had changed everything. It became more than just a job. It was a beginning, a spark that ignited into something beautiful. The world outside faded as they focused on each other, stories melding, laughter lighting up the shadows of their pasts. In the warmth of the life that grew between them, Jack realized that sometimes it takes a simple act, fixing a light, to illuminate a path toward a new and brilliant future. The moment Jack twisted the doorknob and stepped inside that dimly lit house, he felt a chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from an expectant silence that wrapped around him like a thick fog. A single flickering light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting shadows that danced around the cluttered living room. He had seen a lot in his years as an electrician, but something in that room felt different, charged, almost alive. Came a soft voice from the far corner. A woman emerged from behind a pile of boxes. Her hair was tousled and her eyes, framed by dark circles, hinted at sleepless nights. Yet her smile was warm, almost radiant against the backdrop of disarray. "That's me," he replied, trying to match her earnestness. As she motioned for him to follow her, he couldn't shake the feeling that this job was more than just fixing a light. It was as if fate led him to this very moment. The air was thick with unvoiced stories, burdens waiting to be shared. "I'm sorry for the mess," she said, glancing around as if the boxes held secrets she wasn't ready to divulge. Jack studied her as they walked. There was something authentic in her struggle. He remembered his own past, the feeling of transitioning from one life into another. "No worries," he said, hoping to ease her tension. She laughed gently, the sound like a distant chime. They reached the living room, and Jack immediately noticed the flickering light. It cast odd shapes on the walls, almost like a portrait of a chaotic mind. As he set down his toolbox, he could feel her eyes on him, as if she were examining not just his skills but him, a man, a soul, a stranger. Jack began his work, focused on the task at hand. He pulled out his tools, each one familiar yet somehow grounding. But he could still feel her presence, a weight lifting and falling as she rushed to and fro, not quite sure where to put her things. She asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "Jack," he said, glancing over his shoulder. The warmth of her name melted away some of the unease in the room. "I've heard mixed things about the neighborhood, but I thought it would be a fresh start." Her words struck a chord deep inside him. He remembered the day he chose the same path after his own life had shattered. "Sometimes change is exactly what we need," he replied, hoping she could hear the strength behind his words. With each twist of the screwdriver, the flickering grew less frantic. He could feel the energy shifting between them, weaving a subtle thread that bound their stories together. She stood nearby, watching him as if he were performing a delicate magic act. "You really know what you're doing," she said, her eyes glimmering with visible admiration. "It's just a light, but I try not to overlook the little things," Jack said, shrugging. "Oh, it's definitely more than just a light," Sarah replied, a hint of challenge in her voice. He paused, turning to meet her gaze. "You're absolutely right." As if on cue, with a satisfying click, the light flickered back to life. Jack stepped back, a smile breaking across his face. "There we go," Sarah exclaimed, moving with a fluid grace that instantly filled the room with warmth. Gratitude radiated from her, dissolving any lingering tension. Jack felt a pleasant surge of pride. But then, as he looked around at the small mess of her life, he wondered why he didn't feel like leaving just yet. Something about her felt familiar, a connection that beckoned him to stay. Then, as if sensing his hesitation, she reached into her bag. "I really appreciate your help. Here," she said, pulling out a business card and holding it out to him. "Why don't you take this?" Jack's heart raced. He asked, half amused, half flattered. He couldn't help but check the card, her name printed clearly on one side, along with her number. She laughed lightly. "I mean, I'm new here and trying to meet people. A friend," the word hung in the air, thick with possibility. Why did it feel like so much more? He took the card, their fingers brushing, and it sent a thrill through him. "Sure, I'd like that," he said, his voice steady despite the rush of myriad thoughts. The idea of a connection beyond this brief meeting excited him, igniting something inside. After their turbulent encounter, the air around them started to shift again. They exchanged a few more words, casual and lighthearted, but there was an underlying current, the recognition that their lives had unexpectedly intersected. Jack could see the walls that Sarah built around herself, yet hope and vulnerability danced in her eyes. It reminded him of the moments he had felt vulnerable, longing for someone to understand. "I could tell you about the best coffee shops," he offered, his mind racing ahead. "I'd love that," she said, and for a moment they stood there grinning at each other, an understanding forming without any need for deeper explanations. When Jack finally stepped out into the crisp autumn air, the lingering warmth of their moment followed him. He looked at her business card in his hand, the words shimmering back at him like a beacon of possibility. The next few days passed like a blur. Jack found himself facing the same old routine, the early morning wake-ups, the long hours fixing faulty wires and aging sockets. But now every time he glanced at the business card, anticipation bubbled within him. He thought about calling Sarah, about reigniting that flicker of connection. Late one evening, as the day dimmed into night, he mustered the courage. With a swift tap on his phone, he dialed her number, fingers trembling slightly in excitement. When she answered, her voice lit him up like the light he had fixed. It felt exhilarating to hear her laugh at his familiar greeting. "I was hoping you'd call," she said, and in that moment the warmth of her words wrapped around him. They talked easily, the barriers between them crumbling with every shared laugh. Sarah told him about her love for painting, how she longed to capture the fleeting beauty of the world around her. "Art is my escape," she said, her voice softening. Jack shared stories of his childhood, reminiscing about the small town he grew up in, filled with memories both sweet and bittersweet. They fell into a rhythm, finding comfort in each other's stories like two old friends reconnecting after years apart. With each passing day, they met more often. Coffee turned into long walks, easy conversations curling up into deeper stories. It was as if they were both gradually peeling away layers, revealing their true selves bit by bit. One chilly evening outside a quaint cafe, they sat together under a soft glow of lights strung above them. Steam rose from their mugs, blurring the world around them. Jack felt drawn to her. "You know, it's kind of amazing how a simple light can lead to all this," he said, gesturing between them. "It's true," she smiled, her eyes sparkling with understanding. The air thickened with unspoken emotions, a feeling that transcended friendship. It was intoxicating yet terrifying. Jack took a chance, leaning a little closer. "I'm grateful for that day, for you." Suddenly the lights flickered, and for a moment their world dimmed, pulling his thoughts back to the day he first entered her home. "Maybe we both just needed a light to guide us out of the shadows," Sarah whispered, her voice low yet powerful. Their eyes locked, each heartbeat echoing the weight of that moment. Jack could feel the world narrowing down to just the two of them, and he knew it was time to take a step forward. He reached for her hand, feeling the warmth flow between them, an electric connection. "I don't want this to end," he confessed, vulnerability lacing his voice. Sarah's breath caught, and she leaned closer, their foreheads touching for just a heartbeat. "I feel the same," she whispered. With that, Jack took a deep breath, and in the middle of that small cafe filled with lights and laughter, they shared a kiss, soft, tentative, yet charged with promise. The world around them melted away, leaving only the warmth of each other and the light that seemed to shine brighter than ever. As their lives gradually intertwined further, Jack reflected on how a simple call to a flickering light introduced him to a woman who would brighten his world in ways he never dreamed possible. Each small moment led him closer to her, illuminating the path he never knew he was searching for. From that day forward, they embraced change together, painting their dreams on the canvas of life, exploring the shadows and the lights alike. In reclaiming their individual truths, they found something beautiful, the light that binds souls in unexpected ways. And every time he fixed a light, he remembered their first meeting, the moment that changed everything. The door creaked open, revealing a living room shrouded in shadows, barely illuminated by a flickering bulb. Jack stepped inside, his heart racing, pulled in by the mystery of the moment. An unfamiliar house, a trembling light, and the air thick with uncertainty. He could feel it in his bones, something significant was about to unfold. "Hi, you must be Jack," came a hesitant voice, pulling his focus away from the dim glow. A woman stood at the edge of a cluttered room, her hair falling slightly over her face as she stepped forward. The edges of her smile were anxious, yet inviting, like a beacon in the gloom. "Yes, that's me," he replied, masking his intrigue with professionalism. She gestured him further into the room. "It's just the light," she said, waving her hand as if dismissing it, but there was an unspoken weight behind her words. "It keeps flickering and driving me crazy." Jack nodded, feeling the shared burden in her voice. As he knelt down to inspect the light fixture, he couldn't help but study her from the corner of his eye. She was surrounded by half-empty boxes, remnants of a life freshly unraveled, and the air smelled faintly of paint and possibility. He asked, breaking the silence. "Yeah," she replied, folding her arms as if to protect herself from the memories hidden in those boxes. Jack understood that feeling. Change could be disorienting, like stepping into the unknown. He continued his work, trying to keep the mood light. "A new place can feel like a blank canvas," he said, twisting wires with purpose. Her laughter was soft, but Jack noticed a flicker of something deeper behind it, a fleeting grief perhaps. "I'm not sure. I guess I want to fill it with things I love, things that make me feel." In that moment, Jack realized this job was more than fixing a bulb. It was about lighting up the corners of a life that had been dimmed for too long. He adjusted the wires and gave the fixture a gentle shake, the flickering light stabilizing into a warm, steady glow. He exclaimed, standing back to admire his work. Sarah, a name that now echoed in his mind, clapped her hands together, her excitement palpable. "Oh, thank goodness, I thought I'd have to live in darkness forever." He smiled, feeling a rush of satisfaction flood through him. "It's just a light," he said, but he knew better. It was a lifeline, however small, a sign that she was moving forward. Then an unexpected shift occurred. Sarah rummaged through her purse and pulled out a simple business card, extending it toward him. "Thank you, really, I'd love to keep in touch." Jack's heart skipped. A business card? Oh, really? He stumbled, caught off guard. Was she serious? "Why not? You've already done me a huge favor," she replied, a sincerity in her voice that compelled him. As he took the card, their fingers brushed lightly, igniting a spark that threw him off balance. It was only a card, yet its weight felt like something much more significant, an invitation, a chance to dive into something new. Jack suggested, the idea spilling from his lips before he could second-guess himself. Her eyes lit up and her smile grew wider. They shared a moment, a flicker of hope dancing between them. With an exchange of glances, an unspoken agreement formed. This could be the beginning of something beautiful, maybe. After leaving her home, Jack couldn't shake the lingering thrill. As an electrician, he was used to working in the practical realm where lights flickered and wires connected, but this felt different, mixed with an unfamiliar excitement. Sarah's card found its way into his pocket, and with every glance at it, he felt a surge of anticipation. The next day, Jack decided to call her. His fingers hovered nervously over his phone screen. The dreaded thought twisted in his mind, but the thrill of possibility propelled him to dial the number anyway. He said, forcing out the words as if they held weight. The moment her voice came through warm and welcoming, everything else melted away. "Jack, hi, I was hoping you'd call," she said, and the enthusiasm in her tone lifted his spirits. They bantered back and forth, trading stories, sharing laughs that echoed into the phone. Jack learned about her love for art, how she missed painting but couldn't find the time amidst boxes and adjustments. "Let's change that. I'll bring over some supplies and you can paint while I try not to mess anything up," he joked. Her laughter was bright and clear, filling the silence with unmistakable energy. "Sounds like a plan," he chuckled back, savoring the playful challenge. Over the next few weeks, they met frequently, their connection swelling with every shared story, every laugh. Jack found himself drawn deeper into her world, basking in the warmth of her spirit. They began to explore local cafes, art galleries, and community markets. Each time they met, it felt like each layer they peeled away brought them closer, that flickering light guiding their way. They made plans to attend a painting workshop. Jack noticed how passionately Sarah talked about colors, brush strokes, and the way art could express our innermost feelings. It struck a chord within him, the way she articulated her dreams. "You know," he started, gathering his thoughts, "I think art is a lot like fixing things." Her eyes sparkled with understanding. "Exactly, and every time you fix something, you bring back its light." Jack felt heat rise to his cheeks. Her words were like a breath of fresh air, invigorating yet comforting. He realized he hadn't just fixed a light for Sarah, he had become a part of her journey, her healing. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves sprawled on her living room floor, surrounded by paints and brushes, trying to make sense of splashes of color on canvas. Laughter filled the air as Jack hilariously mismanaged a brush, getting paint everywhere but the canvas. Sarah joked, shaking her head, laughter dancing in her voice, "Just adding my unique touch." He grinned while attempting to fix the chaos he created. As they painted, an easy silence settled between them, thick with comfort. Jack caught a glimpse of her lost in thought, her brow slightly furrowed. He asked, leaning closer. She hesitated, the air felt heavy between them. I can't help but think how different things are now. I've been through a lot, and I didn't expect to find someone who gets it." For a moment, the room seemed to shrink around them. Jack felt the intoxicating pull of vulnerability, a truth weaving itself into the space. "I'm just glad I'm here with you," he said quietly. And just like that, they shared another moment, the kind that creates a bond stronger than words. Their gaze lingered, hearts pounding softly as they teetered on the edge of something deeper. The days turned into nights filled with laughter and connection, but beneath the vibrant surface, Jack sensed echoes of their individual pasts. They had both been bruised by life, he by his divorce, she by whatever had prompted this fresh start. It was like painting over old layers, each stroke carrying the weight of their personal histories. One evening, while sitting across from her at a small cafe, Jack's heart raced as he came to a decision. The energy between them flickered, a blend of excitement and trepidation. She looked up from her coffee, her expression shifting toward concern. "Since the day I fixed your light, you've brought a light back into my life." The honesty flowed through him, sincere and true. "I want to see where this goes." For a heartbeat, time stood still. Jack's pulse thundered in his ears, waiting for her response. A smile broke across Sarah's face, though it was tinged with something deeper. "I feel the same." Their hands reached across the table, fingers intertwining. And in that moment, Jack felt like they were both finally stepping out of the shadows, embracing the light that had brought them together. In the weeks that followed, Jack's world shifted in ways he never imagined. They explored each other's dreams, unveiled their fears, and stood side by side like two artists collaborating on a masterpiece. Every flicker of laughter, every shared glance, it all felt like a brushstroke carefully painting the canvas of their lives. But life isn't without its challenges. Just as they began to intertwine their lives, Sarah's past began to rear its headless shadows she had hoped to leave behind. One evening, while they were deep in conversation, her phone buzzed intensely. She glanced at it, and Jack noticed the way her shoulders tensed. He asked, concern painting his voice. "It's just my old job. They need me to help a client. I thought I had moved on from that," she revealed, frustration mingling with vulnerability. Jack reached for her hand, instinctively grounding her. "You don't have to deal with that alone." That's when he realized, even in their blooming relationship, the past was still a shadow lurking. They needed to navigate it together, forge a path that would bring them closer, not tear them apart. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "I just need time to figure things out." Just then he remembered the flickering light in her living room, the way it sparked and shimmered, on the verge of going out but still holding on. "Let's face this together, one step at a time." Days turned into weeks as they faced the highs and the lows, drawing strength from one another. It wasn't always easy, but the bond they shared only deepened, illuminating corners of their lives that once felt heavy with despair. Until one stormy night, when the weight of the past finally came crashing down. Sarah received a flood of emails, each one reviving old wounds that had started to heal. Jack watched as her spirit dimmed, the weight of it was palpable. "Maybe I shouldn't have come back," she muttered, frustration seeping into her voice. Jack's heart ached for her. "You can handle this." But the conversation spiraled, words exchanged in frustration and fear, and for a moment they were lost in misunderstanding. It felt like a flickering bulb on the verge of breaking. Sarah snapped, her eyes flashing with pain. "I understand, but you're not alone." Jack pleaded, desperation rising in him. She shook her head. "You don't know my history, Jack." And there it was, her shadows creeping back in, threatening to overtake the light they had built together. Jack grasped at a flicker of hope. "You don't have to go back to that darkness." In that moment, something shifted. He could see her walls start to crack, the fighting spirit within her igniting. "I don't want to lose this," Sarah whispered, vulnerability spilling from her lips. "Then let's work through it," he urged, reaching for her, grounding her once more. That night, as the storm howled outside, they bridged the gap. Through shared stories of hardships, fears, and regrets, they rekindled their connection, lighting a path forward together. In the days that followed, their bond grew stronger than any flicker or shadow. They learned that light doesn't just mean brightness, it means understanding, support, and facing life head-on. Jack became her partner, not just her friend, and Sarah found herself embracing change, her fears no longer haunting her. Eventually, as the sun broke through the storm clouds, they turned their eyes toward the future, new dreams blooming on the canvases of their lives. Each stroke became symbolic, an emblem of resilience, love, and the light they carried for one another. It all began with that flickering light in Sarah's living room, a reminder that even the dimmest moments could lead to something incredibly bright. Fixed bulbs and business cards became the starting point for a relationship that healed two fractured souls, lighting the way into a journey they never expected but always hoped for. Together, they found strength, illuminating each other's paths as they embraced the complexities of life side by side, ready to paint the next chapters, no longer alone in the shadows. The house stood at the end of Maple Street, quiet and unassuming, yet cloaked in an aura of something waiting to unfold. Jack pulled his van into the narrow driveway, the gravel crunching beneath his tires. He glanced at the job order, a simple task of flickering light in the living room. Little did he know this would be the moment that changed everything. He stepped out, toolbox in hand, and felt the cool breeze on his skin. The sky hung low, heavy with clouds, suggesting a storm that lingered just out of sight. With a deep breath, he approached the front door and knocked. The door swung open to reveal Sarah, her eyes carrying a hint of uncertainty, yet softened by a warm smile. "Hi, you must be Jack," she said, stepping aside to let him in. As he crossed the threshold into her living room, the flickering bulb above caught his attention. It cast long shadows across the cluttered space. "It's darker in here than I thought," he said, looking around. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, new beginnings mixed with remnants of an old life. "Yeah, I've just moved in," she replied, her voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. "It's a bit chaotic." Jack chuckled lightly, sensing the underlying stress in her words. "Sometimes it helps to have another pair of hands," he said, setting his toolbox down. He could feel her watching him as he began to work. "I needed a change," she said, folding her arms as if to shield herself from the memories that still haunted her. Jack understood that feeling all too well. Just a few years ago, he had been in a similar boat, navigating through the waters of loss and uncertainty. "Change can be hard," he answered, focusing on the light fixture, removing the cover to inspect the wiring. As he adjusted the wires, their conversation flowed easily. And about her love for painting and how the old electric company was run by a family of artists. "I've always wanted to be an artist," she said with a glimmer of hope. Jack smiled, appreciating her candidness. "Art is powerful." He finished securing the last connection and took a step back to test the switch. With a satisfying click, the light flickered to life, illuminating the room with a warm glow. "There you go, all fixed," he said, grinning. Sarah clapped, excitement lighting up her features. "Thank you, I thought I'd be stuck in the dark forever." As she moved closer, Jack felt the atmosphere shift. It was as if the light had chased away more than just the shadows. "It's what I do," he replied, but inside he was surprised by the warmth blooming in his chest as their eyes met. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a small business card. "Here, take this," she said, offering it to him. Jack's heart raced. This was more than a simple exchange. He asked, caught off guard by the genuine invitation. "Why not? You helped me, plus I could use a friend," she said, her sincerity washing over him like a comforting wave. He took the card, feeling a jolt of electricity at their brief touch. The playful banter now felt like the beginning of something deeper, an invitation into each other's worlds. "I definitely like that," he managed to say, his pulse quickening with excitement. After exchanging a few more smiles and tentative words, he packed his tools, but the light between them felt too bright to ignore. As he stepped outside, he glanced back one more time, catching her eyes sparkling like the new light in her living room. That evening, as Jack drove home, the card sat in his pocket like a small treasure. Every time he glanced at it, something significant pulsed within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. It reminded him of possibilities, of shared laughter and dreams. Days passed as he wrestled with the idea of reaching out. Should he text her, or would that feel too forward? During the quiet moments of his day, he found his mind wandering to Sarah. There was a part of him that ached to know her better, to explore the connection that had sparked so unexpectedly. Finally, he decided to take the plunge. One evening, sitting in his worn-out armchair, he pulled out his phone. With a deep breath, he tapped her number and pressed call. When she answered, the warmth in her voice made his heart race. "Hey," he said, excitement and nervousness swirling inside. "Jack, I was hoping you'd call," Sarah replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice. They began to talk, and the conversation flowed easily, as if they'd known each other for years. Jack discovered more about her love for art and the struggles she faced in finding her style. He shared stories from his life, how he fell into electrical work not just as a job, but as a means of rebuilding after a personal crisis. Sarah mused, and Jack felt an undeniable recognition of their shared experiences. After a few more conversations, they agreed to meet for coffee at a local shop known for its cozy atmosphere and eclectic artwork. The day of their meeting arrived, and Jack felt a mix of excitement and nerves as he entered the cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted around him, filling him with warmth. When Sarah arrived, his heart skipped a beat. She wore a simple sweater, and her eyes shone with enthusiasm as she waved. As they settled into their seats, it felt like the world outside faded away. They talked about everything: life, dreams, the chaos of moving, and how they both craved something more profound. "You know," Sarah said, her voice playful, "you should really consider a side gig as a therapist." Jack chuckled, his cheeks warming at the compliment. "I just think it helps to share our stories." At that moment, he realized how easily they navigated the delicate edges of vulnerability, acknowledging their pasts without judgment. With every laugh, every shared story, the connection between them grew stronger, and he felt a pull toward her that was magnetic. As they left the cafe, walking side by side on the tree-lined street, Jack couldn't help but admire the way she lit up at every new laugh or gentle breeze. The last remnants of daylight cast golden hues over them, painting the world in an amber glow. She asked suddenly, her voice bubbling with excitement. He replied, wondering what surprise she had in store. They turned down a narrow path that led to a public park filled with vibrant flowers and towering trees, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Sarah guided him to a small, hidden corner where a massive mural adorned the wall. Vivid colors swirled together, telling stories of resilience and hope. Jack exclaimed, his eyes wide with fascination. It's my favorite spot, she said, her pride evident. I come here to gather inspiration when I paint. As they stood in front of the mural, Jack could see the passion in Sarah's eyes. It was the same spark he had seen when she talked about her art. You know, this mural, it's a lot like you, he said, and she raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Her laughter echoed in the park, mingling with the scents of blooming flowers. That's a pretty high compliment. They spent the afternoon wandering through the park, playing games of imagination about the stories behind the art around them, what it could mean, who painted it, and how it came to life. With every shared joke, every gentle nudge, their bond deepened. Weeks turned into months, and the time they spent together stitched their lives into a vibrant tapestry. Jack felt himself opening up in ways he hadn't thought possible. From shared meals to evenings spent laughing over movies, they built a friendship that blossomed organically. Their playful banter became a dance of hearts, weaving through light and shadows. But as their connection grew, so too did familiar fears that lurked just beneath the surface. Jack sensed moments when Sarah's gaze would flicker away like an artist caught in a rough draft, uncertain of where the next stroke would land. He asked one night, concern threading through his voice. Nothing, just working through some things, she answered softly, but he could see the shadows dancing behind her eyes. He said, leaning closer, desperate to bridge that distance. I know, she replied, but it felt like a dam holding back emotions. It was during one of those delicate times that Jack decided he had to confront the unspoken shadows. We've shared so much with each other, but I've also seen you pull away. I care about you, Sarah. Her face softened, a gentle relief washing over her. I didn't want to burden you with my past, but you don't have to, he said firmly, taking her hands in his. With a deep breath, she began. She shared pieces of her past, the struggles with family expectations, moments when she felt like she lost her way, and insecurities that haunted her late at night. Each word was a brushstroke on the canvas of their lives, and with each detail shared, they stepped further into the light together. I feel lost sometimes, she confessed, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. Like everyone else is moving forward and I'm just. Jack squeezed her hands, a steady anchor amidst the turmoil. You are not alone, Sarah. You've come so far already, and I'm here to remind you of that. That night marked a turning point for them both. The shadows whispered less, and the light of their connection grew stronger, illuminating the crevices of their hearts. It was a promise to face what came next, hand in hand. Months passed and the seasons changed, yet their connection only strengthened, rooted in shared vulnerability and kindness. Challenges came and went like clouds passing in the sky, but they faced them together, always finding their way back to the light. Then one crisp autumn day, as golden leaves swirled around them in a vivid dance, Jack realized he couldn't imagine his life without Sarah. He had grown to love her, the depth of her spirit, her laughter, the way she brightened the world around her. When they found a quiet bench in the park, he took a deep breath, the weight of the moment palpable. Her eyes met his, filled with a mixture of curiosity and warmth. I've never felt this way about anyone before, he said, the words spilling from him like a shower of golden leaves. You've brought light back into my life in a way I never expected. Her breath caught. For a moment, time stood still, the world around them fading into a blur. Then a smile broke across her face, illuminating her features like the sun breaking through the clouds. Each word felt like magic, the culmination of all their shared moments, laughter, tears, fears, and dreams. They embraced, wrapping their arms around each other as a cascade of happiness welled up inside. As they held onto each other, behind them, the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the world in a warm glow. In that instant, Jack realized that the flickering light he once fixed had ignited a fire within them both. From that day forward, they walked hand in hand, navigating life's challenges together, solidified by a bond that became a masterpiece of its own. Through the storms, the light they created together would guide them, illuminating even the darkest paths. Sometimes it all starts with a simple act of flickering light and a business card turning into an extraordinary journey filled with love, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. Every flicker of the bulb in her living room felt like a heartbeat, a reminder of something unsettling. Jack stepped through the doorway, his toolbox in hand, ready to fix what was not only broken but seemingly lost. He crossed the threshold, a wave of cool air brushed against him, carrying with it the scent of old paint and fresh beginnings. "Hi, you must be Jack," the woman said, her voice almost lost in the cramped space. Sarah stood on the edge of a disheveled room, hair falling over her face, eyes bright but weary, like she had been fighting a battle that no one else could see. "That's me," he replied, his heart racing a bit faster. He had seen many homes in disarray, but something about this place struck a chord. It felt like a canvas just waiting to be painted. She motioned toward the offending light fixture hanging from the ceiling, the glare harsh yet sporadic. Her laugh held a hint of defeat. Jack couldn't help but smile. You'd be amazed at how many people think they can do it themselves. As he moved closer to the light, he caught the slightest flicker of her eyes, interested but guarded. It's a tricky business. She tilted her head, pondering his words. Her voice carried a weight that made him pause. There was something deeper buried beneath her casual replies, a hint of longing or perhaps loss concealed behind her laughter. Jack felt compelled to dig deeper. Yeah, she said, folding her arms as if trying to shield herself. I thought it was time for a change. Her honesty struck him like a jolt. Jack had fought his own battles and the scars lingered. Change can be daunting, he said as he twisted the wires with care. She watched him work, her expression softening. You must be right, he glanced at her, intrigued by her dream. Art, yeah, she replied, confidence creeping back into her voice. Jack could see the flickering light in her eyes mirroring the bulb overhead. She smiled at that, and for a brief moment the burden of her thoughts seemed to lift, but just as quickly as the brightness appeared, it faded. She said softly, but Jack quickly turned back to the task at hand, focusing on securing the wires. The clicks and clacks of his tools filled the air, a rhythm that felt grounding. He found comfort in fixing things. It was tangible, it was real, unlike some parts of life that felt chaotic and unpredictable. After a few moments, having tightened the last screw, he stepped back and flipped the switch. The light flickered once, twice, and then with a satisfying hum it glowed steadily. There we go. Sarah's expression transformed from concern to joy, and her eyes sparkled with genuine appreciation. Oh, thank God, Jack felt something a spark, yet he couldn't pin down what it was. Perhaps it was the satisfaction of fixing more than just a light. Before he realized it, she reached for her bag, pulling out a small business card. Here, I want to thank you properly. Jack's heart raced as he took the card from her hand, their fingers briefly brushing together. He asked, surprise tinting his voice. She replied, grinning, you fixed my light and brightened my day. He hesitated, caught off guard by her straightforwardness. In that moment, something shifted. There was a connection hanging in the air like the warm light they'd just restored. Let's do it, he said, heart-pounding, curiosity piqued. As he stepped out into the cool evening air, he felt the weight of the card in his pocket, heavy in the most exciting way. What had started as a simple job had morphed into something unexpected, an invitation into a life intertwined with his own. Over the next few days, Jack couldn't shake the thought of Sarah. That flickering light had been a catalyst, but the connection felt like something profoundly different. He found himself daydreaming about her laughter, her honesty, two souls navigating their worlds, filled with questions yet eager for change. Finally, he decided to reach out. One evening, sitting on his couch with a cup of coffee, he pulled out his phone and stared at the contact information she'd given him. With a steadying breath, he picked up the phone and dialed. Her voice sounded as lively as he remembered. Hey, Sarah. It's Jack, your friendly electrician, he said, a grin stretching across his face at her giggle. Hey Jack, I'm so glad you called. The initial nerves faded as they fell into easy conversation. They swapped stories about their lives, shared laughter that felt warm and genuine. Sarah talked about her love for painting, the dreams she had which felt a bit dusty after all these years. Sometimes I just think about picking up a brush again, she said, her voice drifting off. Jack encouraged her. What if you just painted for fun? She paused, considering his words. You're so right. As the days passed, their conversations deepened. They began to explore nearby local coffee shops, their outings filled with laughter and easy silences. Jack learned about Sarah's fears, her hope for a fresh start, and above all, her dreams looming above her life like a sunset waiting to break. One day, Sarah suggested they visit an art gallery showcasing local talent. She exclaimed, her excitement infectious. Jack agreed, eager to see the world through her eyes. As they strolled through the gallery, colors and brushstrokes filled the walls, each piece telling a story of its own. He watched her eyes light up as she marveled at the art, the joy radiating from her like sunlight breaking through the clouds. You know, you could be part of this, he said, gesturing to the art around them. I can see it in your eyes. Sarah's smile widened, but Jack also noticed the flicker of doubt return. Maybe one day, she said softly, her voice losing its vibrancy. He pressed gently. You have the talent, the passion. She turned to him, her gaze piercing. It's scary. Life is too short not to try, he replied. Besides, every artist has faced rejection. Their conversation continued, an effortless dance of mutual understanding. Jack recognized the walls she had built, but he also sensed a growing urge in her to break free. He wished he could hand her a paintbrush and show her the beauty that lay within. Days turned into weeks, and they met often, their connection blooming like the art they admired. Yet Jack could feel the weight of her hesitation, a shadow always lurking in the background. During one of their evening outings, he decided it was time to address it. Hey Sarah, he began, his voice firm but gentle. I can see how you light up when you talk about art, but I can also see the doubts creeping in. She took a deep breath, her expression shifting to one of vulnerability. It's everything, my past, my fears. Jack reached out, taking her hand. You're not alone in this, we've all been there. A silence stretched between them, charged with honesty and understanding. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I do, he said, squeezing her hand. You've faced so much already. Her eyes shimmered, and for a moment it seemed she was on the brink of a breakthrough. Maybe there's truth in what you say, she admitted slowly, her walls softening. Jack encouraged, feeling a surge of hope for her. Over the next few weeks, they continued to explore the world together, their shared experiences blending into a beautiful canvas filled with laughter, hope, and moments of clarity. On warm nights, they'd go for long walks, their conversations winding through dreams and fears, always circling back to art and the power it held. One day, as they walked, the sun sank low on the horizon, draping them in hues of gold and pink. Sarah looked at Jack, her eyes glinting with possibility. His heart soared. "That's fantastic." "Nothing," she said decisively. Jack grinned, the sheer joy radiating from her contagious. "I can't wait to see it." As she nodded, he felt a swell of pride. They were both growing, changing, and the flickering light they'd ignited together felt like a beacon guiding them forward. The days rolled into autumn, and Sarah began her mural in her living room, a vibrant explosion of colors taking form on the wall. There were moments of frustration, moments when doubt washed over her like waves, but Jack was there, encouraging her through every stroke. One day, Jack stood back, watching the miracle unfold. "You've created something incredible," he said as she stepped back to survey her work. Tears glistened in her eyes, and she whispered, "It's everything I dreamed of." "You did this, Sarah. You lit your own way," he replied, feeling a deep connection between them, the kind that transcended words and reason. As the mural took shape, their bond deepened in ways he had never expected. Through shared love, laughter, and creativity, Jack began to realize that he was falling for her. Every moment felt electric, every laugh echoing through the corridors of his heart. But with that realization came a new fear. Did she feel the same? Would this new connection become something more, or was he just a friend who had fixed a light? One crisp evening, while they admired the mural under the gentle glow of hanging lights, Jack decided he couldn't hold back any longer. She turned to him, a curious smile on her lips. He paused, summoning every ounce of courage. "I need you to know how I feel. You become such an important part of my life." The air took on a charged quality, thick with uncertainty. Sarah's eyes widened, surprise flooding her features. "Yes," he said, his heart racing. "I felt it from the moment I fixed your light." A silence enveloped them, her expression shifting as she processed his words. "I didn't realize you felt this way," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. He asked, anxiety creeping in. "I've been scared," she admitted, vulnerability spilling from her. Jack felt hope ignite within him. "Then let's take this step together." Finally, a smile broke through her uncertainty. "I'd like that, Jack." As they stood under the soft glow of the lights, they crossed the threshold into something beautiful. In that moment, the flickering lights above them transformed into a bright, steady glow, lighting the path for two souls eager to navigate their futures together. From bond to romance, their journey was a shared masterpiece painted in vibrant colors, a reminder that sometimes it starts with fixing a light. Sarah's art adorned her walls, but what truly illuminated their lives was the love they built hand in hand, embracing every moment, every challenge, and every brushstroke that life had to offer. In the end, it wasn't just about fixing a light, it was about allowing love to fill the spaces that fear once occupied, creating the most beautiful canvas of all a life painted together. The old, worn-down house at the end of Maple Street was no stranger to shadows. Jack stepped off his truck, toolbox in hand, the sun barely breaking through thick clouds that threatened rain. Today was supposed to be just another job fixing a flickering light bulb, but instead it felt like a curtain was about to lift on something unexpected. He approached the front door, expecting the usual chime of a doorbell, but instead he knocked. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a woman with a weary smile. "Hi, you must be Jack," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "That's me," he replied, taking in the hazy living room cluttered with boxes. The flickering bulb hung like a tired eye, struggling to stay awake. "Thank you so much for coming on such short notice," she said, her voice soft yet thick with emotion. Jack nodded, feeling the pulse of her words, knowing that a simple light bulb could sometimes carry the weight of so much more. "No problem, let's see what we're working with," he said, moving closer to the fixture. As he pulled out his tools, he glanced at her. "Yeah," Sarah sighed, folding her arms defensively. Jack paused, tuning into the undercurrent of her tone. "Fresh starts can be both exciting and overwhelming," he said, feeling the atmosphere thicken. "They can be," she replied, her smile faltering for a moment. "I thought a change of scenery might help me put some pieces back together after." His heart tightened at her words. Everyone had a story buried beneath the surface. It was what made us human. "Sometimes a change is just what we need," he offered, trying to keep the mood light as he focused on the task at hand. As he worked on the light fixture, he could feel her gaze on him, curiosity mingling with emotions he couldn't quite decipher. Jack was used to working with circuits and wires, but this felt different. There was a connection bubbling just beneath the surface, one that brought an unexpected warmth. He finished adjusting the wires, flipped the switch, and breathed a sigh of relief when the light glowed steadily. "There we go." A genuine smile broke across Sarah's face, illuminating the room more than the light bulb ever could. "Thank you so much." Jack felt a rush of pride flutter through him as he stood back, admiring both his work and her transformation. "It's what I do," he said, but deep down, he felt like he had done something far more significant. Their eyes met, and in that moment he sensed a flicker of possibility, something that went beyond the confines of mere gratitude. Just then she reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. Here, she said, offering it to him. I would love to keep in touch. Jack hesitated for a moment, the card hovering in the air between them, heavy with potential. He asked, surprised but intrigued. Why not? You've helped me after all, she replied, her grin returning. And I could use a friend. He took the card, their fingers brushing momentarily. A jolt shot through him, igniting something inside he hadn't felt in years. Sure, I'd like that, he managed, the uncertainty in his voice mirroring the thrill of new possibilities. As he left, Jack's mind raced with thoughts of what had just transpired. The flickering light had led to more than just repairs. It opened the door to an unexpected friendship. Nestled in his pocket, the card felt like a treasure, a key to something unknown. The next few days passed slowly, but with every passing moment, thoughts of Sarah filled his mind. Her warm smile, the depth in her eyes, the light he had seen in her when she spoke about art. She sparked something in him he hadn't even realized had faded. Finally, he decided to call her. It felt like a leap into the unknown, a step into the warmth he so desperately craved. Sitting in his living room, heart racing, he dialed her number. Hey, his voice came out a bit louder than intended, but he couldn't help it. Excitement bubbled in his chest. Jack, I was hoping you'd call, Sarah replied, her voice bright and warm. Their conversation flowed effortlessly as they exchanged stories about their lives, laughing and connecting on shared experiences. Jack learned that Sarah had been an aspiring artist, but life had taken unexpected turns. I used to paint all the time, she said, a hint of nostalgia in her tone. Jack encouraged, feeling a surge of inspiration for her. It could be your outlet. Yeah, maybe, she said, her voice trailing off. It's just, Jack recognized the flicker of doubt in her voice, a thread that echoed his own life struggles. You won't know unless you try, he said firmly. As they talked, a sense of familiarity grew between them, more than just friends like two wandering souls yearning for companionship. Their conversations turned into walks in the park, coffee dates, and late-night talks about the stars, creating a tapestry woven from laughter, shared dreams, and the unspoken fears they both carried. One afternoon, Sarah invited Jack to an art fair in the heart of the city. She urged, her excitement radiating. When they arrived at the fair, vibrant colors danced around them, artists showcasing their creative versions of the world. Jack watched as Sarah moved from booth to booth, her eyes sparkling with inspiration. She exclaimed, pointing to a mural splashed in vivid blues and greens. It's captivating. It really can, Jack agreed, appreciating the way she lost herself in the beauty around her. As they explored, he noticed a subtle change, the confidence in her stride, the way she spoke about the pieces, the glimmer in her eyes. Sarah mused, a trace of wonder in her voice. Then do it, Jack encouraged. You have the talent, Sarah. In that moment, he could sense the potential awakening within her, slowly breaking free like dawn breaking over the horizon. But as the fair continued, he could see moments of doubt creeping back into her expression. She whispered, standing in front of an intricate piece that depicted the artist's struggle. What if no one appreciates it? Every artist faces that fear, Jack reassured her. But if you don't try, you'll never know. Days turned into weeks, then months, and every encounter brought them closer together, intertwining their dreams, colors, and stories. Yet Jack could still see shadows lurking, moments when Sarah would pull back, fear creeping into her eyes. One rainy evening, as they sat in her living room working on sketches, he decided it was time to confront it. Hey Sarah, he began, lingering on her gaze. I've noticed you sometimes hesitate when it comes to your art. A shadow fell over her expression. My past, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. The things I've experienced make it hard to believe in myself. Jack reached out, gently placing his hand over hers. You're not defined by your past, Sarah. You're so much more than that. Tears glistened in her eyes. Then you fail spectacularly, he grinned, trying to infuse some levity. But even if it's not perfect, remember that every stroke of the brush is part of the journey. In the following weeks, something shifted. With every conversation, Jack noticed a flicker of determination growing in her eyes. I think I want to start painting again, she announced one day, and the room filled with an electric tension. Yes, Jack cheered, his heart swelling with pride for her newfound courage. I'll start small, she said, determination bubbling. As long as you promise to show it to me, he shot back with a grin. The night she announced she was starting to paint again was monumental. They set up a small workspace in her living room, and Jack watched as she brushed colors onto canvas, hesitating only occasionally. With each stroke, he could see her fears begin to melt away, revealing a vibrant spirit waiting to escape. One day, as Sarah put the finishing touches on her work, he marveled at how far she had come. This is amazing, Sarah. You're doing something beautiful, he exclaimed, pride swelling in his chest. Tears filled her eyes once more. I didn't think I could do it. I always will, he said gently. It was in that moment that he knew. The feelings he had for her, the connection they had forged, ran deeper than he ever expected. As the seasons shifted, Jack found himself confronting his own feelings. One autumn evening, as they walked through a park adorned with golden leaves and a soft breeze, he took a deep breath. Of course, she said, curiosity sparkled in her eyes. I've been thinking about how much you mean to me, he started cautiously. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment he feared he had misread everything. "Wow, Jack, I didn't expect that," she replied, her tone a mix of shock and wonder. "I know it's sudden, but it feels right," he continued, searching her eyes for a hint of understanding. "You've helped me grow just as much as I've helped you." Slowly, a smile spread across her face, its warmth melting the tension. "I feel the same, you know." As the words fell between them, the pressure receded. They stood on the cusp of something new: openness, vulnerability, shared strength. Jack reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, and felt the warmth radiating from their connection. "I want to take this journey together," he said, heart pounding with hope. "Me too," she whispered, the truth shimmering in the air around them. With that, their frames lit up against the muted backdrop of autumn trees, like the glow of the light they had once fixed together. From that day forward, they faced life as partners, champions of each other's dreams. Every challenge brought them closer, and every shared laugh echoed deeper. Together, they began crafting a life not just painted in hopes, but filled with love, trust, and unwavering support. It all began with that flickering light. A simple moment turned into something profound, a transformation that illuminated both their hearts in ways they never expected. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, a spark of connection could lead to a brilliant future. And sometimes all it takes to change everything is a little light, and the courage to ask for a business card. The light flickered on and off, casting erratic shadows across the living room filled with boxes and confusion. Jack stood at the doorstep, toolbox in hand, feeling that familiar rush of anticipation. This day, like so many others, was supposed to be just another job, another fix. But as he prepared to step inside, he felt a shimmer of something different in the air, a gut instinct that told him this was more than just a simple electrical issue. Came a voice, drawing his gaze toward a woman standing just inside the door. She had disheveled hair and tired eyes, yet her smile was bright, almost desperate for connection. He nodded, stepping inside, immediately aware of the clutter surrounding them. No problem at all. As he surveyed the room, he could see remnants of a life that had recently been unraveled: boxes haphazardly stacked, fresh paint on the walls, and the lingering smell of new beginnings. "Yeah," she said, her voice softer now. Jack moved closer to the light fixture, noting the harshness of the bulb's glow, much like the uncertainty in her voice. He took a deep breath, hoping to ease the tension in the air. As he began working, he felt her watching him, her curiosity piquing with every twist of his screwdriver. He asked, breaking the silence. "Sarah," she replied, her eyes flickering with emotions he couldn't quite place. "I just moved in a few weeks ago." "That's a big change," he said, focusing on the task at hand but listening intently. "Yeah, it is," she said, a hint of pain revealing itself in her voice. "I thought a fresh start would be good for me, but..." Jack paused, sensing the weight behind her words. Sometimes change can feel overwhelming. She smiled faintly, and Jack couldn't help but feel a connection building between them. As he tightened the last screw and flipped the switch, the light burst to life, steady and bright. He said, stepping back to admire his work. Sarah exclaimed, a genuine joy lighting up her features. "You've saved me." His heart swelled with pride, more than he expected. "It's what I do," he replied, trying to keep it casual but feeling the shift in the energy around them. Just then, Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "I'd love to keep in touch, Jack. Thank you for fixing my light." Jack's pulse quickened at her offer, a business card. He hadn't seen that coming. He asked, surprised but curious, "Why not? You've helped me out." "It's only fair," she said, her confidence wrapping around them like a warm blanket. "Well then, I'd love that," he said, taking the card and feeling the spark of their fingers brush against each other. It sent a thrill through him. He had no idea what it meant, but it felt significant. As he stepped outside, the weight of the card was heavy in his pocket, his mind racing with the possibilities. Was this just a casual offer, or was there something more? He felt an ache of excitement unfurling within him. The following days blurred together. Jack found himself going through the motions, but thoughts of Sarah flooded his mind. Her laughter echoed in his ears. Her skepticism about moving felt like a reflection of his own struggles. He hadn't realized how much he craved connection until she stepped into his life. Finally, he decided to take the plunge. One evening after work, he texted her. "Hey, it's Jack." Moments later, his phone chimed. "Hi, Jack. Thanks for reaching out. Things are good." A wave of relief washed over him. The conversation flowed smoothly, as if they were old friends reconnecting after years apart. They shared stories, laughter punctuating their exchanges like fireworks in the night sky. As their conversations continued, Jack learned more about Sarah, her love for art, her aspirations, her dreams that felt just out of reach. "I want to paint again," she admitted one evening, vulnerability lacing her words, "but I haven't picked up a brush in ages." Jack replied, his tone encouraging. "Art is about expression, not perfection. I guess I just need to believe in myself again," she said, her voice trailing off. He could sense the weight of her self-doubt. It resonated within him. "You already have all that you need within you, Sarah." Weeks passed, and the bond they formed grew stronger. They met regularly, exploring parks, coffee shops, and art galleries. Each moment together felt like shedding layers of their old lives, revealing something fresh and beautiful. One Friday afternoon, Sarah suggested they visit an art exhibit downtown showcasing local artists. She insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. As they wandered through the exhibit, Jack felt her excitement radiating around them. Sarah pointed out different pieces, her eyes sparkling with passion. "Look at this one." Jack watched as she lit up, captivated by the art and the conversation swirling around them. "You should be an artist, Sarah. You have a gift," he said, heartened by her spirit. "Thanks, Jack. You always know what to say," she laughed, though a hint of doubt lingered in her eyes. She mused, her voice fading into thought. "You should," Jack insisted, sealing the promise in his heart. "You owe it to yourself. Every artist goes through ups and downs." The weeks rolled on, with Sarah gradually taking steps toward rekindling her passion for painting. She began keeping a small sketchbook, filling it with doodles and ideas, each page an exploration of her thoughts and emotions. Jack noticed the small glimmers of joy in her eyes, the way she grew lighter with each completed page. One rainy afternoon, they sat in her living room, surrounded by paintbrushes and colors. "I'm actually thinking of trying my hand at a mural," she declared, determination lighting up her expression. Jack's heart soared. "That's incredible. I don't know yet," she admitted shyly. The anticipation filled the air around them, but as they prepared to dive into the creative process, he could see a flicker of doubt return to her expression. Jack replied, leaning closer, offering her the encouragement she needed. "You're not creating this for anyone else but you." Their glimmers of optimism were soon overshadowed by the arrival of uncomfortable feelings as months passed. One day, as they worked together, Jack noticed Sarah retreating into herself. Her sketches had slowed down, her creativity felt stifled as shadows of fear crinkled her brow. "Of course," she said, her voice faint, the weight behind her words evident. "I've noticed you've been holding back recently. Is everything okay?" Sarah glanced away, struggling to find her words. "It's just, I feel stuck. The past still haunts me. I worry that if I put myself out there, I'll fail." Jack took a breath, feeling the pang of familiarity in her struggles. "You're not alone in this, Sarah. We all have our fears, our battles, but you're so talented." "I'm scared," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "Then let's face it together," Jack urged. They shared a moment of vulnerability, the air thick with tension yet infused with hope. That night marked a turning point for both of them. Sarah realized she didn't have to face her fears alone. The support Jack offered felt like an unwavering light guiding her toward healing. As the seasons transitioned from summer to autumn, they continued to navigate both the highs and lows of life together. Jack remained steadfast, his love for Sarah growing deeper every day. Conversations turned into flirty banter, shared creativity bloomed, and with every sunset they watched, the colors around them began painting a promising future. One crisp evening, as they strolled through the park covered in fallen leaves, Jack felt an overwhelming urge to confess his feelings. Her gaze flickered to him, curiosity mingled with warmth. "You've changed my life in ways I never expected. You brought light back into my world." The air buzzed around them, anticipation tugging at his heart. For a moment it felt like time stood still. Sarah's cheeks flushed, her eyes widening with both shock and delight. "Jack, yes," he pressed, conviction anchoring his voice. "You've brought me joy and I want to explore this connection." Her eyes shimmered and a smile broke through her initial shock. "I feel the same way," she admitted, her voice trembling with excitement. With an unmatched spark igniting between them, Jack stepped forward, taking her hands in his, sealing the moment with a shared understanding. "Then let's do this together, step by step," he said, heart pounding with hope. As the evening unfolded, they stood arm in arm, two souls intertwined, ready to embrace what lay ahead. In that simple moment of honesty, they set foot on a journey filled with promise, love, and endless possibilities. As the seasons shifted once more, they faced life hand in hand, artwork and dreams merging in a tapestry of color and vulnerability. Together, they began crafting their story, their own mural of life filled with laughter, support, and the understanding that love could light even the darkest corners. All of it started with a flickering bulb and a simple business card, but what emerged was a narrative rich in connection, exploration, and the extraordinary power of love. It was a testament to the idea that sometimes, all it takes to spark change is a shared moment of courage and the willingness to see where the light leads. The door swung open and the dim light from the entrance fell on Jack, revealing a scene that felt almost cinematic. He stepped into the house, a worn toolbox in his hand, anticipation buzzing inside him. The air held a faint scent of paint and old wood, hints of change lingering in the corners. Today was just another job fixing a flickering light bulb, but something in the atmosphere made him pause. "Hi, you must be Jack," came a soft voice, pulling him from his thoughts. A woman stood in front of him, her face both vibrant and weary, a mix of emotions swirling in her eyes. "Happy to help," he replied, offering a smile that he hoped would ease her tension. She gestured with a small wave toward the living room where an overhead bulb blinked urgently, casting jagged shadows over the half-unpacked boxes. "It's just keeps flickering." Jack stepped into the room, studying the scene. The walls were freshly painted, but the clutter revealed a struggle just beneath the surface. "Moving can do that," he said, his tone casual but sincere. I needed a change, she admitted, folding her arms as if to shield herself. After everything that happened, I thought a different setting would help. He nodded, feeling the pulse of her unspoken words. Change can be a double-edged sword. As he unscrewed the bulb, he glanced at her. I'm Jack, by the way, he said, hoping to create a light mood. Sarah, she replied, leaning against the wall, watching him with an intensity that made him acutely aware of every movement. He focused on his work as he felt her gaze, his hands moving deftly. He asked, attempting to keep the mood light. I guess I just want to make it home, she said, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. Home is important, Jack said, thinking of his own journey. It should be a place that reflects you. As he tightened the last bolt and turned on the power, the room instantly lit up, bright and welcoming. He exclaimed, stepping back to admire his work. Sarah's relief spilled into laughter, her smile illuminating her features. Their eyes locked for a moment, and Jack felt something deep within him stir, a flicker of connection. But before he could dwell on it, Sarah reached for her purse. I want to thank you properly. Here's my business card, she said, handing it to him. Jack took the card, feeling the warmth of her fingers briefly brush against his. He asked, surprised but intrigued, why not? You fixed my light. Coffee doesn't seem like too much to ask, she said, her laughter light yet inviting. As he pocketed the card, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was not just about gratitude. There was an electricity between them, a pull that felt both exciting and terrifying. All right, I'd like that, he said, trying to sound casual but sensing the intensity growing in the moment. After exchanging a few more friendly words, Jack stepped out into the fading daylight, his heart racing. The business card felt heavy in his pocket, a potential bridge to something more. What had initially felt like a mundane task had spiraled into a tantalizing twist of fate. That evening, alone in his apartment, Jack stared down at the card he had tucked away. Sarah, it read, along with her phone number. He hesitated before picking up his phone, heart pounding as he contemplated sending a text. Would it be too forward? Would she even want to hear from him? Finally, the urge to reach out overtook his hesitation. He tapped out a simple message. Hey, it's Jack, the electrician, just checking in. Moments felt like hours as he waited. When his phone buzzed, he snatched it up. Hi, Jack, things are good. Thanks for fixing my light. His pulse quickened as they exchanged messages, each one filled with laughter and light, turning into deeper conversations that stretched late into the night. Jack found himself enchanted by Sarah, her dreams, her fears, her humor. The flickering light had somehow illuminated more than just her living room. It had revealed a piece of himself he thought was lost. Days turned into a week, and they decided to meet for coffee. As Jack walked into the cafe, he felt a cocktail of excitement and nerves swirling in his stomach. There she was, sitting at a small table near the window, her eyes lighting up when she spotted him. She exclaimed, standing up to greet him. The warmth in her voice was like a balm on his anxious thoughts. I wouldn't miss it, he replied, grinning as they settled into conversation. Word exchanged felt like a carefully stacked block, building something solid between them. Over cappuccinos and pastries, they talked about their lives, hopes, and struggles. Jack learned that Sarah had dreams of painting again, a passion she tucked away after a difficult period in her life. It's like I lost my spark, she admitted, tracing a finger along the rim of her cup. Never, Jack said, leaning in closer, reassuring her. It's never too late to rediscover that spark. And what about you? She asked, genuine curiosity lighting her eyes. Honestly, fixing things, it's strange, but there's something satisfying about transforming chaos into order, Jack replied, the truth spilling out. As they spoke, Jack felt a connection deep in a current running between them. The afternoon sun poured through the window, illuminating their faces, filling the space with warmth and laughter. But outside the cafe, dark clouds began to gather, a stark contrast to the light inside. Their afternoon of connection ended, but Jack's heart felt fuller than it had in years. It was a feeling he didn't want to let go of. Over the next few weeks, they met often, their bond growing with every coffee, every shared story. Jack encouraged her to paint again, suggesting they take a trip to an art supply store. Let's find you some tools, he said, a mischievous smile lighting his face. Sarah laughed, a hint of hesitation overtaking her smile. What if I'm terrible? Jack chuckled. Art is subjective. You're putting a part of yourself out there. That takes guts. At the art supply store, Jack watched Sarah as she examined each brush, her excitement contagious. She asked, holding up a fine-tipped brush. Jack smiled playfully. Very funny, she rolled her eyes, but her laughter lingered in the air, warming something inside him. As the days grew longer, Jack felt himself falling for Sarah. Every moment they spent together felt like a brushstroke creating something beautiful, yet he sensed her doubts lingering just beneath the surface. He knew she was still struggling with her own demons, and he wanted nothing more than to help her confront them. One evening, as they walked through a local park, Jack gathered his courage to broach the topic. Sure, she replied, her voice curious, about your art. You've got talent and you have this unique perspective that deserves to be shared, he said, his heart racing. She paused, looking away. It's complicated, Jack urged gently. Every artist faces it, but keeping those fears pent up inside will only stifle you. I want to create something that resonates, she confessed, her voice wavering. Jack took a step closer, feeling the intensity of her vulnerability. "It's enough, you are enough, you've overcome so much already, Sarah." But as the words hung in the air, Sarah's expression darkened. She whispered, "Start simple, just put color on the canvas and let go of the need to make it perfect," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. Just then, distant thunder rumbled overhead, a reminder that storms often follow sunny days. As they talked, clouds rolled in, casting shadows over the park, an omen of the emotional turmoil simmering beneath Sarah's calm exterior. "I want to believe you," she said, her eyes glimmering with something deeper, an invitation to explore the storm brewing inside her. "Then let's take that first step together," Jack suggested, his heart racing with both excitement and fear. "Let me help you create something." Just when she seemed to consider it, raindrops began to fall, first lightly, then heavier. "Maybe we should head back," she said, glancing anxiously at the gathering storm. They took off down the path, the first drops of rain mingling with the warmth of their shared conversation. As they reached her doorstep, the tension felt thick, charged with unspoken hopes and fears. He turned to her, catching her gaze. "Sarah, whatever you decide to do, I want to be part of it," he said, feeling the weight of his own emotions spilling out. A moment hung between them, tension and hope intertwining. But as Sarah stepped closer, their eyes locked, something flickered in the air, a spark igniting the moment. Suddenly the sky opened up, rain pouring down like a curtain, drenching them both instantly. They both laughed, caught off guard by the sudden storm, and before he knew it, Jack stepped forward, took her hand, and pulled her close beneath the small overhang of her porch. There they stood, soaked and laughing, the world around them a cacophony of raindrops. Jack's heart thudded in his chest, and he could feel Sarah's warmth next to him, the moment stretching into something electric. She asked, an inviting spark in her eyes. "I'd love to," Jack said, and as they stepped inside, he felt the lingering tension enveloping them, a storm not just outside but within their hearts. But as they entered, the mood shifted. The laughter faded, replaced by something raw and intense. Sarah hesitated, her gaze darting to something behind him. "Jack, she began, her voice trembling as she caught sight of her phone vibrating on the table. Desperate to find clarity, she reached for her phone, glancing down at a message. He watched confusion wash over her face, the flicker of hope that had sparked just moments ago dimmed by an unexpected storm of its own. He asked, concern rippling through him. It's my past," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her expression turning uncertain. Jack pressed, feeling the anchor of doubt tugging at his heart. "It's someone I thought was gone from my life," she replied, the weight of her words settling between them like a heavy fog. The room felt charged as they both processed the sudden shift in atmosphere. He asked, concern etched on his face. "I need to figure this out," Sarah said, her voice trembling. Even in the warmth of the moment, Jack felt the chill of uncertainty creep in. The light that had sparked their connection now flickered with doubt, the storm gathering both outside and within. What would this mean for them, for the future they had just begun to explore? Before he could voice the question on his mind, Sarah turned away to answer her phone, leaving Jack standing in the tense silence of the room, the promise of their earlier connection hanging desperately in the air. In that moment, he wondered if the flickering light they had just fixed was only the beginning of an unraveling he never saw coming.